Autumn winter is a great time to start looking at vintage clothing because there are so many high quality outerwear pieces out there for a bargain price. In today's video, I'm going to show you some pieces that I think are worth investing in. In my opinion, these are timeless pieces that are not only going to be good for this autumn winter, but for many autumn winters to come. Being vintage pieces, these are going to be difficult for me to link in the description, but I will tell you the exact brands, and the best places to look are usually going to be eBay or Depop. But the brands that I list are not the only ones who made these types of clothes. So I'll include certain keywords that you need to search for in order to find similar types of clothes. For reference, I'm 5'10" and around 140 pounds. Let's get into it. So the first piece is what most people will know as a fisherman's jumper. However, other people, especially from Ireland, will know them as Aran jumpers. And that's because historically these jumpers originate from the Aran Islands just off Ireland. These were big, beefy, warm jumpers that were effectively used as workwear in Ireland. Commonly worn by farmers and of course fishermen because of their thermal properties. These jumpers are made of 100% wool, which is of course very warm, but is also water resistant and very breathable. So you can see how this would be perfect for workwear on the farm or out on the sea where there are wet and windy conditions. Nowadays, of course, they are still worn for their thermal properties, but they're way more of a fashion piece. For me, and probably a lot of other people, this trend was sparked off by Steve McQueen. Photos of him wearing this jumper in a casual setting really ramped up interest and hype for this type of piece. The way the jumper fits really falls nicely into the way I like to wear my clothes these days. They are naturally made to be oversized and bulky to wear layers underneath. You're going to find that a lot of them have a really nice thick collar to keep that warmth in. You'll find these jumpers in a lot of colours these days, but I think the best is just a natural white or cream. While the one I've got is probably dyed, you can get undyed versions of this jumper which look really nice. Two big things I'd say to look out for if you want to pick up one of these jumpers is, first of all, make sure you get one which is made in Ireland. This will get you the full authentic experience, fit and quality. There is a brand called Aran Crafts who still create this jumper today to the original specification. However, the prices are pretty dear, which is why I recommend picking up vintage. You'll find these Aran jumpers have a strong second-hand market and you can often find them for less than £50. The second thing to look out for is that it's an actual knitted piece made of 100% wool. You can get almost fake versions of these now which are made to look knitted, but they're not. And these are usually not made of 100% wool either, so you're not going to be getting that warmth. Overall, this is just a fantastic, timeless piece, which I guarantee you'll be happy with if you get one. The next vintage piece worth investing in is going to be a flight or aviator jacket. These were originally made for fighter pilots in World War II, but have become popular as fashion pieces. And there is no surprise that they've become so iconic because they look fantastic. A good flight or aviator jacket will have a genuine sheepskin inner lining and leather outer. This was of course originally to keep the pilots warm when they were in their aircraft, but nowadays it translates really well to just keep them warm day to day in the autumn and winter. You're also going to find that these flight or aviator jackets are going to have a really nice boxy fit to them, which is of course why I'm attracted to them so much. So that means that they usually have a nice wide body but with a cropped length. This is a really smart classic look but also very practical. There are countless manufacturers who produce these jackets these days, but because they are such a desirable piece, you're usually going to find that they're going to have a very high price tag, especially if you get the genuine sheepskin leather ones. This jacket from Lutano is probably the most expensive in today's video, and it came in at £100, but believe me, that is far less than you'd be paying for a jacket of equal quality if you are buying it new. And so that's why I recommend for this type of jacket going vintage. Not only are you going to be able to find a really high quality piece for less money, but because it's vintage, the leather is going to be broken in and have a really nice patina. The one that I have is from a brand called Lutano and is made in Italy. I've never actually heard of this brand and I don't know what else they do, but the jacket is supreme. It's extremely sturdy, very heavyweight. All the hardware, the zips and buckles are very good quality. The jacket must be at least 20 years old, if not older, and it's easily going to last 20 years again. The next vintage piece that you cannot go wrong with is the Mackinaw Jacket, which is essentially an American style hunting jacket. These jackets are sort of like flannels or overshirts, but the next step up. There are three big names when it comes to Mackinaw jackets: Filson, Woolrich and Pendleton. These are all American companies who have a history of producing these jackets for at least 100 years. The Mackinaw Jacket is a fantastic autumn-winter piece. As I said, it was originally a hunting jacket. They were specifically made for cold weather hunting, so you know that this jacket is going to keep you warm. Just like the Aran Jumper, these are typically made of wool or a wool blend. This keeps the heat in but also allows breathability so you don't get too stuffy and sweaty. The example I have here is from Woolrich and it cost me about £40. The jacket is a mid-length and has a sturdy look to it, but also quite fitted as well. The collar is rigid enough to be popped up if desired to keep you extra warm. There are also high side pockets which I really like. It's a really comfortable place to rest your hands. You might find on some of the more vintage jackets as well there will be a big pocket in the back. The modern versions of these come in a lot of colours, but you'll find the vintage ones often come in this red check. Woolrich, Pendleton and Filson actually still make these jackets today, but the price is crazy. I would highly recommend looking for a vintage version of these because they are way cheaper, and actually the older versions are all made in the USA. I think the new versions still use American fabric, but they're all made abroad. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just really nice to have these vintage pieces that were made in the USA because that's quite a rarity these days. The next vintage outerwear piece is something I guess you could call an English version of the Mackinaw. I don't think it has an official name, but is essentially an English hunting jacket. I think this style was popularised by Barber 10 or 20 years ago. Whilst this isn't exactly the same piece, it still has that same aesthetic. This isn't exactly the same sort of hunting jacket as the Mackinaw. It isn't really made for extremely cold weather. It's more of a top layer piece you'd probably see someone wearing with wellies when they're hunting in a field. Nevertheless, it's a fantastic looking piece which I think is always going to look good. Those Barber jackets were famously blue, but I think the best colour to get is green. It really is the classic hunting colour and it translates really well to streetwear. The one I have here is from an old British brand called St. Michael. This used to be a part of Marks & Spencer, which doesn't exist anymore, but all of their pieces, including this one, were made in the UK. The quality and construction of this jacket is honestly up there with some of my best pieces. It's got this stunning green corduroy outer layer with a really subtle brown leather collar. It even has a double YKK zipper on the front, and it has those upper pockets just like the Mackinaw, which is a really nice place to rest your hands. These jackets are naturally very drapey and oversized, and that's probably because the people using these for function wanted the room to maneuver around when they were out on the field. In my world, the oversized fit is great for fashion, and this is a really nice light outerwear piece for autumn and winter. This jacket cost me a measly £12, and there are plenty of these floating around on eBay and Depop. Okay, so the last timeless piece of vintage outerwear that I think you should invest in is going to be a workwear piece. I think workwear is having a bit of a bad moment right now, and that's because it had so much hype for a few years and now everyone's getting sick of it. However, it's always going to be relevant and look good in my opinion. Just remember that you don't have to limit yourself to the same brown workwear pieces that everyone's getting. For instance, I came across this Aztec jacket from Carhartt. It obviously has that same fit and shape to it as the other Carhartt workwear pieces, but it has a much more unique design which just gives you more options when trying to style it. Now, I don't think this is an actual Aztec pattern, but it's what Carhartt named the jacket when they initially released it. Whether you like vintage clothing or not, you probably already know that the second-hand market for Carhartt is extremely strong, and I think there's a few reasons why it only makes sense to go for those second-hand pieces. Firstly, of course, just like all of these, is the price. Brand new Carhartt jackets are very dear, but the second-hand ones can be extremely cheap. Admittedly, this jacket is a little bit rarer and therefore it cost me a little bit more. It was about £50, but I've seen these Carhartt jackets go as low as £10 to £20 on Depop, so keep an eye out. Old Carhartt jackets are usually made in the USA, so you've got that quality and rarity factor as well. And just like I talked about with the Flight or Aviator jackets, these Carhartt jackets are going to be nicely broken in when you buy them second hand. A brand new Carhartt jacket is extremely stiff and can take months or even years to properly soften and break in. So buying second hand is not only going to save you money, but it's going to save you time. The fit on this jacket is naturally very oversized. Just like with a lot of these workwear pieces, people wanted room to move around in them. So it's advisable to probably size down from your normal size if you're going with one of these vintage jackets. The new versions, especially from Carhartt's Work in Progress line, are more fitted, and that's because they're being made now just as mainly fashion pieces rather than workwear. What comes along with this is also a drop in quality because the new pieces are just being made for fashion and not for working. And so that's my list of timeless vintage outerwear pieces that will be perfect for many autumns and winters to come. Honestly, I probably could have added a few more pieces to this list, but I think the video would have gone on far too long. But anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next week.